Ladies, welcome back to Midlife by Human Design. And today, well, first of all, today is episode 100 of the pod. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much for listening, for coming along on this journey, whether you've been with me since episode one or whether you are new to me and just joining. I am so grateful that you are here and that you are getting curious about or diving deeper into all of these themes that I've been exploring through the lens of human design as they apply to midlife and beyond. And some of you have found me who haven't even come into midlife yet. So wherever you are on the spectrum, if the themes of this show resonate, then I just want you to know how grateful I am. I really, really appreciate you being here, and I love doing this pod for you all. So, today we are going to talk about the grief, the ache, the longing of unlived lives. So, as of this recording, it is February 2026, and the show Heated Rivalry has taken many people by storm. And one of the things that I have heard time and again from friends of mine who have watched this show is something like, I want to be loved like that. I want to be kissed like that. I want to experience a relationship like that. And these are, for the most part, happily married midlife women who I think are realizing this part of themselves that felt dormant or felt like it was unrecognized or just asleep for a while until this show awakened them. And I want to normalize that, first of all. And I want to explore some of the things that I see in human design as a way of making sense of these feelings and of the effect that this kind of media can have on us. I think that grief in midlife is not only about what has happened, because obviously by now we've lived a lot of life, right? We've lived maybe half of our life at this point, and a lot has happened. And it's not only about the shit that has happened for us, but it's also about the lives that we could have lived but didn't. And I want to reframe this as very normal feelings versus feeling like a failure or that we missed out on something. So I don't really know if grief is the right word to use here because it's not like a loss necessarily. It's more like a reckoning of something that hasn't been for you, may not ever be for you. And what happens is this longing, right? This ache that can surface because we've lived more of our life and we've learned so many lessons. And hopefully, we have come to a certain degree of consciousness than the version of us who made the decisions that actually created the life that we're currently living. And that's why we get this longing. And longings are not necessarily signs to pivot, although they could be, but they also can be just signals for us of our values. And maybe those values are different than they used to be. They are also reminders of our aliveness, of our presence. And I think that they are invitations to integrate qualities of what we're seeing, of what we're taking in, of what is affecting us, and not necessarily the actual scenario that it came about in whatever media or book or film or whatever we're being affected by. So, I want to talk about all of this in the context of human design. And the first thing I want to mention is that obviously human design gives us our energetic blueprint, and it doesn't tell us what to choose. Right? There's not really anything in your chart that says do this specific thing. It's more like, how do you know where your energy is pulling you? So, I want to talk a little bit about the G center, or the identity center, which is the center for love. It's the center for our identity. It's the center for direction. These are the themes of who I am becoming and who I have been. They live in the G center. And we've talked a lot on this show about how midlife is this huge invitation to revisit who we are, because our identities are shifting in midlife, whether it be, our kids moving out of the house and no longer having mother be the same sort of identity that it used to be, the same sort of meaning that it used to have for us, or whether it's you're changing careers and you were a teacher, for example, for decades, and now you are redefining what teaching looks like for you. Speaking about me. And maybe it's that you are moving out of a relationship. Maybe you've been married for a decade or two and you've decided to leave that relationship, or you're thinking about leaving that relationship. Could be health, even. So, thinking about the identity center being the root of who am I really? And when we see media that resonates with us, that makes us feel that longing, it also invites the question of, what path did I not take? Right? Like, what path did I choose not to take years and years and years ago? What path do I want to take now? And can't remember the woman's name. I follow her on social media, and she comes to mind right now. I'll try to link her in the show notes. Please, menopause brain, help me remember this. She is around the age of 50-ish, and she has a role in Chicago, dancing in Chicago on Broadway. And her whole message is basically like, life is not fucking over just because you hit 50. And if you've had a dream for years and years and you gave up on it, like, what the hell are you doing? And I am a huge proponent of that question, asking that question of yourself. And I also know that some people don't want to burn it all down. And so, how do you reconcile that aching, that longing, that feeling that you have with this life that you have built, and understanding that the choices that you've made so far do affect the choices that you want to make moving forward, right? There are consequences to the choices that you make. This is where I think the longing or the grief or the sadness arises, is when we accept that some identities aren't going to be lived out in this lifetime. And even saying that is really hard for me because, listen, I have the 30-41 and I live in the world of anything is possible and fantasy land, and just believing that if you really want it, there's something in it for you. And plus, also, I recognize this 3D world that we live in and the choices that many women have made up until this point, how those affect you. Grieving an unlived life doesn't mean that you chose wrong in the past. It's potentially just a reflection that you chose one path. And every path is a decision that does close off other paths, at least in this lifetime, right? And I believe that we come back and do this whole thing over and over and over again to learn the lessons that we're meant to learn. And if we think about it in that context, then it's like nothing that's meant for you will ever miss you. It may just come around in another lifetime. And that can be a hard pill to swallow, a hard truth to accept. And even while I am sharing this, I want it to be balanced with my true and firm belief that if, again, you want something so deeply and strongly, and it's been on your heart for such a long time, that regardless of the current circumstances of your life, that it is meant for you and that you should keep taking steps to make it happen, to bring it into the reality of your 3D. So I want to say that it's okay, more than okay, for that longing, for that grief, for that sadness to be felt, and it is an indicator that you can reevaluate, because the grief, the sadness, the longing, those things are information for you. How much is it weighing on you? Is it just a passing thing, or is it something that you think about often? And looking forward, can you imagine taking a new path and what your life might look like if you chose to leave a career, for example, if you chose to leave a relationship, if you chose to leave where you live currently? This is your paths, right? Your two roads diverged in a wood moment. So when you choose a path, like, what can you imagine life looking like when you look forward on that path? And how does just imagining it, the simple act of imagining it, how does that feel in your body? What is your body telling you about the imaginary path that you're thinking about? Are you excited? Does it light you up? Do you feel lightness? Or do you feel shrinking? Does it feel hard? Does it could feel scary? Scary doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong, though, especially if you have loops of fear playing in your head. Returning to this idea of the longing or the ache being information for you, I'd love for you to consider the idea of these stories, these fantasies, this longing as being a mirror. And this mirror is activating something that wants to be felt in real life beyond the experience that you're taking in. Like if you're watching a show, or if you're reading a book, or even if you're listening to a friend talk about some ideal experience that has happened to them. It's a mirror. And most midlife women who I work with, and I think who are listening to this show, generally are not in brand new relationships. And so, using Heated Rivalry again as an example, it's natural to yearn for the newness of a relationship, because you quite literally may not have experienced that kind of feeling for like 2 or 3 decades. So, of course, a very natural thing to watch two humans being very into one another and feeling like, shit, I miss that feeling. But does it mean that you want to burn everything down to have that feeling again? Maybe. Maybe not, though, because it's a trade off, right? The beginning of a relationship is called that honeymoon period for a reason. And granted, in the story of Shane and Elia, that took place over 10 years. However, they didn't see each other. They didn't have to like integrate lives the way that most of us in midlife have done, right? We are knitted very intricately with our partners. And again, that's a choice. That was a choice that we made at some point in our lives. And from a human design lens, Our authority is what helps us discern when the outside triggers are something that we need to act on or not. So, if you are an emotional authority, for example, then taking in this media may bring you up on an emotional high. And so, waiting for your emotional wave to really feel through, feel out, let more information come into your purview, understand the landscape as a whole, and then you make a decision moving forward. And maybe it means staying in your current situation, but changing some elements of it, having a conversation about how you communicate. Maybe there are some things that you saw or heard that really resonated with you that made you feel or want to feel seen in a deeper way. And that is something that you can communicate. I've seen a lot of women talking about this on social media about having conversations with their partners after watching this show and being more clear about what they want from their partners. And then, that conversation going both ways. Finding ways to reignite a flame that maybe feels like an ember right now. Finding ways to improve your environment, the space that you spend so much time in. Maybe it's redecorating, maybe it's repainting, just simple invitations for lifting up the energy of the space that you inhabit. Maybe it's starting a new hobby or picking up an old one, something that makes you feel alive again. As I'm recording this, we're in deep winter, and that can be a very sad time for people as well. So, thinking about how do you bring some joy back into your life? And are you following your inner knowing? Are you following your authority? It's an invitation to check in with yourself. Like, are you actually following the authority so that the path that you're choosing is leading you down a space that feels at least in alignment with your authenticity? And especially in today's cultural climate, the craziness that is happening as we see our systems breaking down, I think it's important to remember the contrast of using stories like this to highlight and help us more deeply understand our values, which is more of an invitation to integration versus using it to numb out or just ignore. And I will admit I've definitely done that in the last couple of weeks just because there's a lot going on in the world, right? And it's very challenging to scroll social media, see something so horrific, like literally a murder being filmed and just in this short little video. And then the next post is a commercial for GLP-1s or something. Our brains and our nervous systems are not built for this. So, how do we again use these tools, use these things that light us up and make us feel feelings that we love feeling? How do we use those as a tool to deepen in, to get curious about what it's telling us, to be more of who we are instead of as an escape? And it's a balance. It's a balance. So, no judgment either way. I also want to talk about circuitry, couple of channels, and some specific gate placements that have themes of melancholy in them, because this is also helpful to know. Remember that whatever is in your chart is there on purpose. There's no like, oh, this is a bad placement, or I wish I had X instead of Y. It's more like, okay, this is part of my soul's curriculum. And when melancholy comes up for me, if I have some of these markers, then I can understand, okay, this is maybe some of the shadowy energy. And it's not necessarily good, bad. It's just an invitation to recognize it, integrate it, and then come back to understanding what it can help you with. How does it help your growth ultimately? So, a few different placements. First of all, in terms of circuitry, so if you're looking at your body graph, there are different circuits that essentially dictate how the energy is moving in your chart. It's kind of like a highway map. So if you're looking at the channels in the human design chart, then the circuitry is like groups of those channels. And so individual circuitry, which there can be themes of melancholy if you have a lot of individual circuitry. And individual circuitry is just that. It's very much the marking of being an individual. And in a society that is so focused on being part of a community and belonging, that feeling of being an individual can be polarizing, it can be lonely, and it can lead to melancholy. So, understanding if you have a lot of individual circuitry is helpful. Let's talk about a few different channels. So, the 3955, you have gate 39 on one side of this channel, which is the gate of provocation. And there can definitely be some melancholy here if you feel like it's almost like feeling like you're provoking other people, and the rejection that you feel, or the melancholy that you feel if that provocation isn't landing, if it's being taken in a way that hurts others, that can cause you to feel melancholy. Gate 55, which is on the other side of the channel, is this emptiness kind of potential where, I mean, gate 55 is the gate of abundance, and everything in human design exists on a spectrum, right? So if the high expression is abundance, the low expression is going to be the opposite of that, which is like this emptiness feeling. And the beautiful thing, this channel, is that in this melancholy, there can be so much creativity. And again, that is why we don't always want to be in the quote high expression, because the low expression has gifts in it as well. So, anyway, those are a couple of markers. Another channel would be the 4323. This is the quote unquote freak to genius channel. And the 43 can feel melancholy because they feel like they're being seen as a freak, or their ideas aren't landing. And the 23 is this potential of like, people aren't hearing my genius. They aren't hearing it or aren't accepting it because they're not ready for it yet. So there's a potential for melancholy there. The gate 60 is this gate of Dana and Shayna on Day Luna talk about it as like kind of thinking of it as an archer, as this pull back before you launch. And the energy of the pullback and just sitting and waiting. This gate is in the root, and sitting and waiting for the pressure to kick in to take action. The waiting for the pressure can feel like a void. And that can definitely lead to melancholy because you want that pressure to kick in for you. You want to be able to take action. And it's this feeling of like, I don't know where to go. I just can't take a step forward. It's very stuck kind of feeling energy. And that can most certainly lead to melancholy. Oh, and I forgot to mention this channel too. The 2838 is the channel of struggle. And this channel can experience melancholy because it can feel like the struggle they're going through, that like life is always a struggle, or the struggle that they're in is meaningless, or it has no point, or why are things so hard? This has a bit of victim like energy in it. And so understanding that, yes, it may feel like that sometimes. And how can you use that for deeper exploration. What is your authority telling you to take action on? How is your authority helping you and your strategy helping you to move out of this struggle? So, those are some of the places to look at in the chart for markers of melancholy. And I just want to remind you that these are not sadness sentences. It's not a sentence to you that you are going to experience sadness, but it is a place where you can look and say, oh, I actually do have that gate or I do have that channel. And maybe I can look at the themes of those things and start to understand what is behind it. So, for example, if I watched something that lit me up over and over and over again when the characters were deeply seeing each other and I have the gate 4323, then I might understand that, okay, maybe I need to be around more people who have 4323 so we can get weird with each other. Maybe I need to be with somebody who has more individual circuitry so, I can appreciate their weird and they can appreciate mine, just as an example. So, I want to offer you a few different reflection questions that may be helpful in grounding you when you are feeling this longing or ache. Number one is, what part of you is being awakened by the story or fantasy that you're in or experience that you have witnessed? What part of you is being awakened? The second question, does engaging with the material, whether it be your fantasy, a book, a film, a TV show, does engaging with it make you feel more like yourself, or does it make you feel less present? So, where is the line between authenticity and escapism? And then the third question is, what grief or longing is asking to be acknowledged before it can help you transform a part of your life? So, is there some latent longing, for example, that's just been sitting, kind of lurking, that maybe this show or something else has brought to the forefront? And how can sitting with that again, acknowledging it, how can that help you in some way transform part of your life? So, to wrap up, I just want to revisit the idea that we are here in midlife, and in order to get this far along in life, to have lived this many years, we have to have made plenty of choices. And midlife is an invitation to, sure, look back and reconsider the choices that we made and the paths that we chose to walk down and start to discern what is real and true for us and feels authentic for us versus what is fantasy. We have lived enough years at this point to understand, I think, what our truth is and to reconcile it with our choices and to admit to ourselves whether we're being true to the person that we are and the person that we want to continue to become. Because we're looking at the second half of our life and we can use our past choices to inform our future choices. So maybe giving yourself a bit of a break here and understanding that you don't have to live every possible life in order to feel like your authentic self. If you are in a season of questioning and feeling like the world is upside down, then get on my email list so you can get access to readings and resources to help you navigate it all. And drop a note in the comments and tell me, like, do you feel this aching and longing in midlife? And what does it mean to you? How are you unraveling it all and making choices moving forward? Thank you so much for listening, and I am sending you the strength to let go of what no longer serves you, joy to fill your days, and the clarity to be who you came here to be.